and John as well, just really at the core for me, the Center for Nondual Awareness is where consciousness and community and creative expression, not art, music, poetry, but all forms of expression, where those three come together. And the purpose of the center in my heart, or the purpose of my participation in it, is about supporting that flowering through each of us. So I'll say more about that later. But yeah, it's nice to just start with that core inspiration. So I want to bring our attention to not just our collective wonderful group of people. Some of you I've met and some of you I haven't, but it feels lovely that each of you has showed up here, and I feel like what we're creating with the center and with this series is, it's just a tiny little sprout right now. And like any little sprout, it needs water and sun and attention. And it ultimately can flower if it's in good soil and gets the water it needs and the sun it needs. And so I feel like the beginnings of it right now, like the attention that each of us is putting into this for the next hour, 2 hours, is like that. That's like sun and water. And even as it's just this tiny thing, to see the potential in it is a lovely thing. And that's how I feel about everybody as they come into their awakened expression. You know, it starts out small, and people, I mean, maybe you can relate in that sense, like the sense of potential that there is within your heart, or that's within the universe that wants to move through you. There's such a huge potential, and then here we are, is just where we're at right now, and taking one step at a time. And so as we are evolving the center, I feel like there's a beautiful opportunity of growing together, each of us growing in our own expression together as the center is growing. So I'm just acknowledging the sort of sprout stage that we're in right now, and appreciating all of us that are showing up for this. And I also want to acknowledge that this will be recorded and available as an invitation for people to join the series or join the center. And so I want to just welcome whoever's watching on the recording, welcome you to our circle this evening, and acknowledge each of the seeds sprouting in each of our hearts. So I'm going to do something a little bit hokey, but I want to. So I have this candle here, and I want to light it. Just as a symbol of that light within each of us that we share. I'll put that over here. Thank you. So, and I also want to acknowledge Sarah and John, who are on the call with us. They're on the board of directors with me, and we've put in a lot of time. It's a labor of love volunteering at this point. And Jan and Jerry have also participated in the past, and just noting that there's something that inspires us to support whatever's happening here. And so I just want to extend gratitude to all of us for doing that. And I also want to invite some gratitude towards 3 people that have recently agreed to be on the advisory board of the Center for Nondual Awareness, which include Adyashanti and Peter Fenner and Judith Blackstone. And it's a delight, you know, they're now offering their advising, and it just feels like a beautiful vote of confidence and a beautiful gesture of support for what we're all doing here. So, I'd like to invite us, since we're a small enough group, to, and Sarah, you can suggest how this might go, for each of us to share 2 to 4 words. And the first 2 words would be about what inspired you to be here. And the second 2 words are about what it is that you feel that you bring to the community around you in terms of, you know, non-dual awareness, in terms of the depth of your inspiration. What 2 qualities, 1 or 2 qualities do you feel like you bring to your community? So when I was thinking about this earlier, I realized that the main 2 intentions for this meeting this evening in my heart are inspiration and connection. And then when I thought about what do I bring to the community, I thought, well, ideally in my heart, inspiration and connection. So it's kind of the same for me. So I'm wondering if logistically, Sarah, do you feel like it would work to go one by one? Okay.
I do. I think the experiment I'd like to try logistically is that I'll go down the list of names and say the name of the person and unmute them.
That sounds like a good idea.
Okay, let's try that. And it's shows up alphabetically for me, so that's how it'll go. So, Anne.
Yes. So I would say what drew me is a desire for connection and curiosity. And what I can bring forward is an open heart and just caring.
Beautiful. Thank you. Bobby.
Yeah, young people inspire me so much, and watching them interact in satsangs and reach out, and so I'll let young people be my inspiration. And you know, just a practical thing. I bring some editing and writing skills, and also a lot of love.
Thanks, Bobby. Thea?
So I think the reason I'm here tonight, I'm going to say, is good timing. And what I feel that I offer my own community is kind of a welcoming energy, I would say, and maybe some playfulness.
Beautiful. Thank you. Adit.
Hi, I'm so sorry I'm on my phone. So I'm so happy to be here. I guess let's see. I bring happiness, curiosity, and curiosity, I can't quite pronounce it, and excitement.
Awesome. We can hear you just fine, so that was great.
Okay, good.
Okay, Fran. I've unmuted you, Fran. You're there. Maybe I'll come back to you, Fran, if we don't. I'll come back to Fran at the end. Jerry?
Yes, I would say why I'm here tonight is, first of all, an appreciation for the center and for the offerings and what they've done over the years and continue to grow and change. So appreciation. And my other would be support, because I want to do what I can to help support this organization and all of you, and however you offer this to the world. And to my community, I guess it's a feeling of gratitude that I bring for them and for how we all share in this heart of awareness that we all are. And the other one would just be an openness to be, to see that in myself and see that in others, that, you know, there's just that openness to be who we are. So.
Thanks, Jerry. Jan.
What brought me here was knowing the depths of Maya's wisdom. So I would say wisdom and togetherness, maybe. Loving this community and loving to be a part of it. And what I bring to groups I facilitate, I guess, or when I'm at my best, maybe, is, I would say, intimacy and joy.
Thanks, Jan. Jim.
Yeah. Intimacy and joy. I'm here. I'm not. Yeah, I'm here. I saw Maya's presentation, and on the sand, and so I'm here because of Maya, and I'm also here because of Jan and Jerry. So maybe there's more than one reason. What I bring to the community, I think, is openness and spontaneity, the spontaneity of expressed meditation.
Beautiful. John.
Well, what inspired me to be here tonight was definitely curiosity. And I think I'm going to add a third one too. Curiosity and appreciation. And appreciation to Maya for who she is and for the gift of this offering, and support for the center and for the vision that is that growing seedling that we're helping to nourish and eventually see blossom, or continuously blossom. And what I have to offer is love to the community and commitment, a dedicated commitment.
Thanks, John.
Mm-hmm.
Justine. Hey, Justine, are you there?
Hi. I'm here to connect and explore with others, and I offer nothing. There's nothing to offer.
Thanks, Justine. Maya, already went. Nishkala. Nishkala.
For me? Oh.
If I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Nishkala.
Nishkala.
Yes, it's fine. I was part of this center for a number of years, and after taking Peter Penner's training, and we had a a small group that would meet by phone or actually Zoom to address application of the non-dual to our work, our respective work. And that stopped a year or so ago. I'm not sure how long ago now. But so I haven't been a member for a while, but I saw this notice, and I know Maja from, I've seen you in various contexts, but it was kind of very quick impulse, just okay, let me see if I feel up to it. It's a little late here, I'm on the East Coast, so here I am, here to connect again. So you'll have to remind me of the questions, because I have no memory.
What do you, oh, go ahead, Maja, you say it.
Oh, what do you bring to your community? One or two words that describe what you bring to your community.
Openness, or open listening, maybe. And quiet.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Peter.
Sorry, I struggle to be here. Hi, I bring to my community compassion, authenticity, and curiosity.
And what drew you here today?
I just saw the email and I glanced over it, and I've been here before occasionally, and I'm drawn to be in connection with people who explore non-duality.
Wonderful, thank you. And Renat?
Hi. My intention for being part of the community is connection, and I guess that's been fueled by curiosity and excitement, and the qualities that I bring to the community. I guess it's open-heartedness and love. Yeah.
Beautiful. And I'll go back up to, oh, they're not there anymore. What drew me here, two words, service and yes. And two words for bringing. Depth and sincerity.
Thank you, Sarah, for guiding that, and for everyone for sharing your words.
Hey, Maja.
Yes.
Maja, this is Monique. I just wanted to chime in. I'm on the phone on the cliffs of Santa Cruz with the ocean here. And so I just wanted to introduce myself and say I'm drawn to the community because of you, and because I really want to explore conscious community, and what I can offer is creative brainstorming and problem solving. So I'll go back on mute.
Sorry, I missed you there.
Thanks, Monique.
Yeah.
Lovely to have you on the call with us.
Thanks.
So, okay, now we'll get into some stories and information, and hopefully something that will be helpful or inspirational for everybody. So before I go into that, I wanted to say a little bit about what my background is. And yeah, I'll just say quickly. So I have a PhD in transpersonal psychology, and when I was in that program, I my main thing that I was studying was facilitating creative processes. And what I learned in that program very clearly, as we had groups of 30 people in a class that would go through this creative expression class, most of them had no experience with art or creative expression. And it was amazing what kind of beauty and depth came through with each person. And I learned that really it's possible for anyone to express the inexpressible. And it's just a matter of what the context is and maybe that sort of the method that they're using to express through. And so then when it came to the world of spiritual awakening and the idea of people sharing the Dharma or sharing non-dual awareness, it was also clear to me that anyone has the capacity to express the inexpressible to that depth as well. And again, it's the context that we're in. And so one of the questions that came up for me when I was working with Adyashanti, given my background in this creative expression process, it's like, oh, here's Adyashanti as someone who is doing his dharmic expression in the world. And I saw that it was obvious to everybody in the organization that his retreats were the most powerful form of his teaching. And so it was particularly curious to me, like what made his retreat so powerful. And oh, actually, I'm wondering if I should start my sharing of the screen. Yeah, I think I'll just go into that if you all don't mind. Let's just get right to it. So let's see if my share screen will work here. And Sarah, you can guide me if that is working properly. Is that showing up?
Yeah, looking good.
Okay, great. So the question I asked was, what makes Adyashanti's teaching, retreats, the most powerful form of his teaching? And what I found kind of surprised me. I found that there's 7 channels through which the mystery reveals itself to itself. And there's a cyclic process that extends beyond the retreat itself, and a perspective on how community and culture forms around a common recognition of awakened awareness. Now, also, I'm going to assume that a number of you have watched the presentation that we had, the video of the Science and Non-Duality presentation that I did. And so this is a lot of repetition of that. So I'll go through it fairly quickly, but I do feel like it's good to just recap these steps. So in the center of our whole cycle is that core inspiration. And since I made this chart, I actually renamed that center to be the core inspiration. In Adyashanti's case, awakened awareness is a good word for that. And so the key question in this stage when we're looking at that awakened awareness concept is, who am I? And actually, I have a different question that I'm going to pose to each of us later when we get through this whole cycle that I hope will help clarify something for you in your own process of flowering, I guess is the word. Oh, and I included some little cartoons for you all. So the first step, then, we can start anywhere on this cycle, but it's kind of an easy conceptual place to start with the step of intention and clarity. And so to be clear internally and externally about what your intention is for what it is that you're doing. So in the context of Adyashanti's retreats, he might have had an intention to, for everyone at that retreat to wake up to their true nature. And he certainly had ideas about past retreats that he'd been on that that were run a certain way and that sort of thing. So he had some kind of idea of what he wanted to do. And to get clarity about that is that step here. And the question here is, what matters most to you? And actually, yeah, what matters most to you, so that can guide your intention of what you're creating, and you can stay on track with that. So here's a little cartoon I thought has kind of a deep meaning, even though it's funny. And I can't hear if anybody's laughing or not, except Sarah. So Sarah, you can laugh at all the cartoons and I'll feel good.
Okay, I'll keep my mute off.
So then the next step, after there's an intention, there's an invitation. This is where a lot of, let's say, spiritual teachers might get stuck, because this is sort of the marketing phase, right? This is where you invite people into what it is that you're doing. But if we don't think of it as trying to manipulate and get people to do something, instead, if we think of it as putting out our call, like what is it that inspires us, and stating that clearly, and then someone who resonates and has that same call within them will resonate with that invitation and then show up for it. And also they'll show up understanding what it is they're showing up for, and they'll show up more deeply. So the key question here is the outer call in alignment with the inner calling. So is my marketing message, or is my invitation to people a resonant expression of what it is in my heart that I'm doing? Like if I'm offering a satsang, is my invitation to that satsang equally imbued with silence or beauty or nothingness or whatever it is that you feel like you're offering? Doing business without advertising is like winking at a girl in the dark. You know what you're doing, but no one else does. So then then we come to the investment phase, and on retreat, this is where people, they need to commit financially. They need to commit on their calendar. They need to follow in Adya's retreats silence, and that's a very strong commitment that people make to each other. And so when we commit to something, that creates a stronger container for us to be in and for the collective to be in. And as someone, let's say if you're a satsang teacher or a therapist or a community leader, to invite people in with some kind of commitment assures that you have some, like a solid playground, like who's on the team. Once you have the teams, you can play the game kind of thing. So in this stage, the key question is, what investment will create the deepest engagement? So if we're thinking about the amount of money, for example, that you might be charging for something, some people might say, oh, I want to do it for free, because I want as many people there as possible, and that's the deepest engagement they want. Although it doesn't always work that way, but that could be some right way to create deep engagement. Another way would be to charge a significant amount of money, because someone that pays $5,000 for something is going to show up and they're not going to leave in the middle of it. So, there's anywhere in that range, but it's a matter of knowing like what is the right balance for you and what's going to allow you to show up fully with the investment that people are offering to you in exchange. So what's the meaning of life? But make it quick. I've got an important meeting in half an hour. So, so we all know what that's like, to try to get the easy way, which is good sometimes. So the next stage is the connection. And this is where, like when I was first looking at what makes Adyashanti's retreats the most powerful form of his teaching, this is where I was imagining this retreat starts. So my thinking started here. And this is where you show up at the retreat. This is where you take off your shoes before entering the hall. This is where you know, there's a song before satsang. This is where we start in silence and acknowledge the sacred in ourselves and each other. And the question here is, am I present? As a leader of, like looking at this from a leadership perspective, am I present fully right now? And where is God? And the answer to where is God would be like in anyone who's listening right now to what I'm saying. It's like for me to understand this is God listening, this is God speaking. And yeah, and I want to just acknowledge that I notice that when I'm using the slideshow, I'm not as present in the spontaneity of the moment as I am if I'm not doing the slideshow. So just acknowledging that. So this is a cute little one. I'm not sure, is the color looking okay?
Yeah, this color's got a little green filter on it.
Yeah, I'm wondering why that is. Oh, there. Okay, so dear Buddha, I would like to have your peace, your wisdom, your serenity, and your divine nature. But most of all, I would like to have your acorn hat from Squirrel. So we can see like the sincerity of that and the that sort of invocation there. And so the next step is what often people who are leading satsangs or, you know, doing that kind of teaching thing think this is the teaching part. Like they think this is their job right here, when actually all of that's your job in a way, but basically the inquiry phase, curiosity. And I love that so many of us said the word curiosity when we were checking in. Curiosity opens our eyes and hearts to the mystery of being. And the key question here is, what is the question? So if you're someone who is bringing community together or in some kind of teaching role or guiding role, it's really good to know what's the question that you're good at asking, and just to be clear about what that is for you specifically. Oh, and I love this one. So there's the loaves of bread says, how do I know that my experience of consciousness is the same as other experiences of consciousness? And the oatmeal says, why are we here? And the potato says, what is my purpose? And the peas say, what is the meaning of life? And then it says complex carbohydrates. So then we get to the insight phase. And this seems to be like the goal, right? The goal of awakening or whatever. And as the mystery flows through, the channel deepens and clears. And in this phase, it's like the question that you can ask yourself is, what works? What is it that you have done in your process of all those steps before that has led to either a success or unexpected outcome or whatever, what works? And this is actually a question that Adyashanti asked himself in his process ongoingly. He still asks. So the squirrel at the psychiatrist's office, when I learned you are what you eat, I realized I was nuts. So then we get to the final stage of integration and community. And the living realization provides a fertile ground for the next unfolding. And the key question here is, how does this realization move in life? And so this phase is like after the retreat. After the retreat, there's some kind of life that people have, and there's a community that is formed or not formed. And this phase is also important because out of that new integration, a new community, a new intention then comes to form. So you can see in the circle as we go from integration to intention that, like in the case with Adyashanti, you know, out of the deepened community that has been on retreat, then we start a new retreat at a larger retreat center, and then there's new questions that come up around that. Or as we expand to a global community, how do we serve a global community? And then we get online courses, and how does that work? So each phase we go through another cycle. So we are all little bits of each other. Ideally, that's what happens. But sometimes, as we all know, the integration and community part isn't always so happy and easy. So this was a very quick overview of this cycle. And actually, Sarah, I'm wondering if you want to reflect on anything at this point. Or does that put you on the spot?
No, I can see if anything wants to arise here.
I'm wondering if you want to say a little bit about some of the things that you found interesting when you learned about this cycle. And I also want to acknowledge that, yeah, it wasn't something that I felt like I was making up as much as I was naming. I was just naming what was happening already. And so when you reflected that, it wasn't like you had to fit yourself into a system. Right. It was more like, oh yeah, this is what's happening, and just naming it. So I feel like that's an important thing, because I'm not trying to create some kind of system here.
Yeah, I think that's kind of so much of almost the beauty and the healing that I felt around it, was that it was naming something that was already happening, and it like validated something that, like, that this is happening. Each one of these places is a real place. It's a beautiful place. It's a place that does deserve consciousness, and a place that does deserve intention. And it's a place that fits into a whole. So anywhere that, I may have been struggling with any one part of this, feeling, the part it played in the whole, the part that whatever place I was struggling in fit into the cycle. It's like I could feel that here's the other places in the cycle that are very strong, that like I know. And then to feel the whole cycle, it's like that balanced it out. Like it almost helped me not struggle so much in the other parts, because I was like, these parts feel good. So it's just these parts that need some support and help in this whole. And it just kind of brought this balance to my experience that God just felt like chiropractic, or some sort of just deeper feeling of balance is a really good word.
Nice. Yeah, that's exactly the questions that I wanted people to ask themselves. We won't have time to hear from everybody about their reflections, but I want to invite you, if you have a paper and pencil, you could write something down, or you could just do it in your mind and heart, but to consider what are the 1 to 3 strong points that you feel like you totally resonate and have down in this cycle, and what are the 1 to 3 weak points in the cycle, or we could say just things that you haven't thought about until now much. So I want to give a little bit of time to just think about that. And so as you're thinking about that, I want to also suggest that it's possible to apply your strengths into the areas where maybe you haven't been, where you've been sort of shying away from. And the particular one that's kind of obvious to me that I kind of mentioned already in the field of, let's say, teaching satsang or doing something of that nature, is the invitation phase, where, as I mentioned, people kind of shy away from that, especially when there's that sense of, you know, there's no self, and what would I be, you know, promoting here, and that kind of thing. And we all have our own relationship to that, but there is a sense that I think is really genuine that happens when people sort of let go of, or when it gets let go of, that sense of contraction around me and what I do and that kind of thing. It's sort of natural that, I mean, it would be the opposite of what you want to do to try to manipulate someone, for example. Like the deep value system that comes with awakened awareness doesn't fit into the, you know, Mad Men kind of approach to marketing. And a different approach is, let's say, if you feel like you're strong in the inquiry phase, you know, as something you have a capacity to teach, then you can actually teach in the marketing. You can think of putting out actual teachings as a taste of what it is that you do, and people that resonate with those teachings will then hear that call that you're putting out. So that's just a really obvious, to me, way of having your strength support your weak areas. And another one is how I'm noticing with this project with the Center for Nondual Awareness that, you know, it's a really busy time for a lot of us. And I think that there's just something in the air. I don't know about everybody on this call, but it feels like a lot of us are being really called to, like, fully serve, and not just at the Center for Nondual Awareness, but just in the way that our life calls us. And I noticed that that as we're working on different things to create for the membership, that I don't have the bandwidth to do it myself. And I'm looking at this chart right now and realizing, wow, that even though we're a small community, the people that are in this with me, Sarah and John and Kent and Sonia and Adya and whoever is there that I've been engaged with, it's like relying on the community to move something forward, right? That even showing up for this this evening, like, I'm sure all of us are, you know, had other things we might have been doing, including starting to get ready for bed or whatever, but we showed up because there's something, maybe that investment, like I had, by advertising this, the Center for Nondual Awareness invested itself, it committed itself to this thing, and now it's happening because of that investment. And so each of these things helps to create a container, not only a container, but the assurance of something unfolding over time. So these are just some random reflections that are coming up for me right now as I'm looking at this chart here. And I'm wondering if anyone wants to raise their hand. I would really enjoy hearing if anybody wants to share, like, what is some kind of connection between a strong and weak point that they've experienced, or what, actually, if you have a question about something, I'm super happy to answer that. And after we do that, eventually I'm going to talk more about that center core inspiration, because I feel like that's the the foundation of all of this. And since I did this presentation at the Science of Non-Duality conference, I had more clarity about that in a story that I want to share with you about my own experience with that. So anyway, has anybody raised a hand, Sarah?
No, not yet.
Okay. So feel free at any point if you want to raise your hand about something. Okay. So let me say a little bit about what this series...
This is Justine.
Justine, hi.
Hi. I just wondered, I know you went through this cycle quite quickly. I was just wondering where you felt the calling to actually just be with others, offer whatever it is that we offer to others. I was just wondering where maybe I missed where you had that in the cycle, or
where you just sit in non-dual awareness and share that with people.
Where you feel you couldn't not offer it to others.
I'm not sure I understand your question. That you feel that call that's choiceless?
Yes, it's a choiceless. It doesn't matter who shows up, how many are here, wherever I am. It's just, this is what's here. And so I just wondered if that was in there or in some way or not, or that hadn't come up for you, or yeah, I just wondered.
Yeah, that's a really good question, especially in this context. I want to say a little bit about my process with this chart. When I was at the Science of Non-Duality conference, one of the people at the presentation was a representative of the New Harbinger publishing company. And she asked if I would write a proposal for them, a book proposal. And I said, sure, I'd be happy to. I mean, there's no guarantee of a book, but she and I are now in a conversation about that. And part of her invitation was that, like, to make this more applicable to the general audience, not just a non-dual audience. And I'm excited about that challenge, and I feel like it can be sort of applied broadly. And then on the other end, now you're sort of speaking on the other end of that spectrum, like what's sort of more, like, even less formed than that, if that, I don't know if I'm articulating that, but I feel like you're sort of asking the opposite question. And yeah, I would say that it's not explicitly in here, except when we talk about that center point a little more, that might come more into it. So if you're just showing up for whoever shows up, I feel like these stages still happen. Like, you're still sitting with them in non-dual awareness in the inquiry phase, or they still have some kind of invitation to even know to come sit down with you, whether if it's just like you're sitting on a park bench and somebody feels drawn to you. It's like a call of silence, but it's still a call on some level that they're responding to. Investment, commitment, these can all be sort of...
Look, I just wonder if, just once it just comes through in every way, sort of once there's integration, then it just becomes an obvious intention and invitation. And so the spiral continues. I just wonder if it comes in that integration. Yeah. Anyway, I just wondered if you had thought where the actual call to offer when it becomes that you couldn't not offer and connect with others came in. That's all. It's fine. I just thought about it.
Sorry.
Sorry, I missed the last part of your sentence, Justine.
I just wondered whether, you know, you had sort of saw it as a deliberate step. That's all.
Yeah, I think it could be deliberate or not deliberate. And I feel like with any kind of, and what comes up for me when you bring that up is just the idea of that choiceless calling. And this whole process can be an internal one or an external one, but that inner call in the invitation phase, an inner call is so strong that you are naturally committed to that. And then you naturally, you know, sort of call in connections in one way or another, and you're naturally curious. It's just all natural. And I think that's kind of what Sarah and I were both saying about that. It's not like you don't have to do this as a doing, you know, and it may not be helpful. You know, if somebody's already in their flow and there's no problem with anything, then great. You know, this might not be of use, but when a system like this is helpful, I mean, it's only there if it's helpful, you know, for somebody that feels like that call so deeply, but they don't have the outer resources to truly put into practice the depth of their calling because they're in survival mode, for example. It's like something like this could be helpful to them. But then again, it's like there's a mastery cycle also. You know, when you learn your scales, then you don't have to, you know, read the music or whatever. It's like at some point, people can just get into the flow and they don't have to think about it. Like Adia didn't think about this. Like this wasn't at all in his thought process. In the whole 15 years of Open Gate Sangha before I actually named these things, he never thought about it this way. So it's not like it has to be thought of or has to be done specifically. So I appreciate your bringing up your question, and it's something I'll also explore a little further in my own inquiry with this. Does anyone else have a hand raised by any chance?
Yeah, Dea does.
Great.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. I can't see your face. So, okay. So for me, this personality was very driven. Basically, did teaching and public speaking for a living. And then there was the shift, and I've recently read a few books on finding your Dharma. I find those books on goals, intentions, and even what you have here for me at this particular time takes me out of presence and into wanting to do. And again, that's because of where I came from. So I'm just wondering if you have any suggestion for, because I do think it's very insightful, but at the same time, you know, the mind will want to get in there and work the program. And but in the meanwhile, I'm trying to figure out, you know, how to be of service, because I do feel that that's really important, and there's not really the same desire there anymore that teach why, you know, do this, why. Like I'm not getting any answers back on how I should be contributing. And so then I feel like I'm just not contributing. So maybe that's a few questions.
Yeah, well, I'm really glad you're bringing this up. And you know, I think that we're all figuring this out together. In terms of how does life move without that sort of driven goal thing, you know, there's a million business development groups that are happening that are driven the way that you're describing. And it's like, how can, like, how do those things become integrated? You know, so I really appreciate the feedback that you're finding that this incites your kind of doer thing, which I get that. And I would love to be able to present this to the community in such a way that, if nothing else, just to say, yeah, gosh, I totally support you in not doing this, you know, and at least we have that here, right? In terms of, I guess my question in exploring this with you would be, like, where is the point that of, let's say, dissatisfaction might be too strong of a word, or a point of where, like, oh, the calling isn't being met or something, like, where is that point? And because that would be the place where something could be addressed or awareness could be brought into or whatever. Does that make sense?
I'm not quite sure that I am following what you asked.
Okay, I think you touched on when you said, but I'm like you're feeling called to do something, but it's not actually happening. Did you say something like that?
Well, I do feel that it is still just my personality that thinks I should be giving some kind of service or some kind of dharma. That just this feels like a no-brainer, though. You know, but it might be just as simple as just being present with every person I come in contact with. But I live in the country and I'm not even in contact with very many people other than the grocery store once a week. So I feel like they're, you know, if I could be used in a greater way, there's a sense that, but maybe the timing isn't right and I'm supposed to just be in the non-doing state a little longer, and maybe it's just the personality from before, which was super driven, that's still wanting to, you know, make it look like something's happening.
Yeah, gosh, I feel like there's a lot of people that can relate to what you're saying and where you're at, and I wonder, like, so I don't have an answer for you, but I feel like collectively, or let's say individually, people go through that where, like, I cannot do my life the way I used to do it, right? Like, that was self-violence and I'm not doing that to myself anymore, or whatever, you know, whatever movement it is in you that doesn't want to do it that way. And so that is like kind to oneself to not push something, and it's in the flow and all that. And at the same time, I feel like collectively there's more of a push, like that sense of we got to do something. So I guess I want to tell a little story about my own process, because it's been a long time that I have felt like I need to get out and do my dharmic expression. So I've been supporting Adyashanti's dharmic expression for 17 years. I just ended that role at the end of December. And I started working for him after there was an initial awakening with another teacher. And then I met him, and because of that awakening that I had experienced, for lack of a better word, for the Advaita police out there, I immediately, when that happened, it's like, this is what my life is about. This is what my life is in service to. It wasn't like conscious necessarily, although it might have been, but it was like, what else would I do except serve this? And because there's nothing else to serve, it's all, you know, whatever. And so when I met him, maybe a year or two later, I realized, this is a teacher that I could really work with. And also, I felt like my calling to serve the flowering of truth was channeled most efficiently by supporting him as a teacher. And then at a certain point in serving him and his wife Mukti, beautiful teachers, I realized that in a way I wasn't needed there anymore. Like he had been established enough as a teacher that what I was offering was like, you know, at the beginning I did so much in the office and I was so sort of multi-capable. Like I really helped sort of get him rooted. I mean, I didn't help him do his teaching, but I helped all these other things, like in the cycle, the invitation and all those things. It's like I was very much involved in supporting his rooting and being able to flower in his full expression. And when I sensed that, oh, I'm not needed here anymore, like if I left Open Gate Sangha, they'd be just fine. It would maybe be a little challenging to make the shift, but they'd be fine. And I realized only after I was working with this material and looking at that core inspiration in the center that I realized that my core inspiration is about the flowering of awakened awareness, basically. Not just awakened awareness, but the flowering of awakened awareness and supporting that to happen, either through my own creative expressions or by serving others to flower. And so when I wasn't serving Adya's flowering anymore, that was no longer aligned with my core inspiration, which was the flowering. And looking back on that, I realized, oh, okay, Open Gate Sangha is about awakened awareness through Adyashanti's teachings. What I'm about is the flowering of awakened awareness. And when Adyashanti's teachings didn't need my help anymore, it wasn't about the flowering anymore, it was just about awakened awareness. And I'm not sure that I'm conveying what I want, but basically, I look back and I see, oh, that's when that tweak was like, oh, this isn't totally aligned for me because it doesn't resolve that core inspiration. It's not like I decided the flowering of Dharma is my core inspiration. It just is, right? And so when I realized, oh, that was when I started to not feel aligned, and it was very confusing for me until I just put two and two together. So anyway, I'm pointing now to that center of that circle, which on this chart, which I'll bring back up again, is awakened awareness. Now, like I said, that would be called inspiration and core, or core inspiration. So now I'm trying to think, how does that tie back into what you were bringing up? I guess I just feel like there's something about getting clear about really what your core inspiration is. And then when that clarity comes, something else becomes more clear. And so I've been talking a lot, and Dea, I'm wondering if you have any thoughts related or not to what I've been saying that you want to share.
Well, I like what you said about just finding that core that was underneath it all. And I don't think I have that at this time. I'm not aware of what that is. And I do think that the few things I've found, like reading mostly, figuring out what your Dharma is and all this, have really been, mostly through the yoga community, have really been more about the Dharma of your body mind, and because they just don't fit. So I like this model, and I'm going to contemplate it because I think I have been looking in the wrong place.
Wow, that's great. And Dea, I'd love to hear your process, because it's exactly, yeah, no, I forgot the first woman that I was speaking with, but it's like, this is what I feel like is not being addressed, and the answers aren't known, and we collectively find it. So as you find your way in that, then, if that gets shared, then more people can kind of find out how to navigate, because also collectively it feels like there's just more intensity of it's time to come out and flower. It's like collectively the field is in that place where we're all starting to get to that place. That photo of the lotuses that I chose for these emails about this course, it's like there's some of them are fully flowered and some are just buds and some are down here and some are halfway open. It's like I feel like we're all kind of in different phases of our own flowering, but there is a flowering happening. And so I just want to acknowledge that you're at the forefront of your own exploration, but it's also our collective exploration. So I really would love to hear how that unfolds for you. Yeah. So does anyone else have, yes, Sarah?
There's no one with their hands raised quite yet, and I don't have the function to click.
Oh, okay.
For myself.
So you raised an actual hand.
Yeah. Just what you just said about the phases of flowering, and I think I'm resonating with what you just said, and also what Dea was saying of like in my own process, the seed form of like there's like just a blueprint, but there's really no movement there's just no movement to unfold that blueprint. And there was a pressure for many years of I could feel the blueprint, but there was no real true movement yet, like really no movement to unfold that blueprint. And yet I could feel it, and so it felt like I was supposed to do something, and I was supposed to try. And it's just a lot of sitting in, there's no actual movement to unfold that blueprint yet. And I could feel the rest of the world and watch other people's unfolding. And it felt like now's the time and everyone's doing it. This was like many years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago. It still felt like it was a time of people unfolding and blooming and popping open like flowers. And I would look and be like, where's mine? It's not even started. I'm not started yet, but I know I can feel the end result almost. So I just wanted to just, I don't know, throw that out there, that maybe that feeling of honoring that no movement underground as a seed is still part of the process. I don't know if you can speak to that.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is beautiful. Again, that you're not the only one. I had an artist friend in England, and he said, and I was just sitting on the floor 2 hours a day or more, just doing nothing, just sitting there, not like in meditation, but just doing nothing. And that sort of the mind doesn't get it. The mind doesn't get it. And I think that I like the way you described that sense of feeling the blueprint and feeling the sense is not just the blueprint, but the depth of potential, right? Mm-hmm. Like you're the seed, and wow, you can grow into an oak tree, but you're just this big, but you like, and I feel like that when we tap into that depth of awareness, that we become simultaneously aware of the blueprint more sensitively than we could be before, mm-hmm. and more aware of the power. And so, yeah, something shifted for you. So what shifted? Because now you're in like that popped open kind of.
Yeah. I'm not exactly, something I guess that shifted was that there came a call. It was almost like awakened awareness wanted to infiltrate a specific place in the human experience, a specific place in the collective. So it kept seeming like, well, I should just be sharing awakened awareness like everyone else who's just pointing to awakened awareness. And then I should just point to that. And it just seemed like that's what everyone else was doing. And it didn't really feel authentic to like just point to awakened awareness. And when I pointed to it in a certain context of embodied human experience that it wasn't really being pointed to, that's where it flowered. And it was just like almost like waiting until it was time. And I guess the feelings I have around it are just like, it wasn't needed for me to put enough people or something were pointing just to it, but it was this just perfect moment of I'm pointing it out in some place in the embodied human experience where it doesn't normally go. And why it's important not only to address that place in embodied human experience, but address awakened awareness as really the one way to approach this place of human inquiry.
Yeah.
And now I just want to say that I can definitely feel the difference inside of how it's moving itself versus it's very clear now. When it was my old personality, like, yes, there's awakened awareness, and my personality wanted to do something with it. And it's very clear the different sensation now inside of wholeness or something that's moving itself in it.
Yeah.
And I also just wanted to point to that each one of these places you've pointed out, now that it's something more organic and natural going through it, it's like each one of these places feels like an inquiry to me, not a doing, not like a step to take or make. Each one of these things feels like an invitation for me to just bring more consciousness, to go deeper into silence. It's like an inquiry into the silence. Each one of these just feels like that. It just invites my attention to, invite more consciousness to embody each one of these things.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Mm-hmm. And it speaks to also this presentation that when I first did it 2 years ago at the Center for Nondual Awareness retreat, which, by the way, we're going to plan another one for either the first or second weekend in May. So just inviting people to be aware of that. It was called Channels of Sacred Communication. And each of these 7 parts of that cycle each of those is a channel through which awakened awareness can express itself. Mm-hmm. And so the same way words are a channel that express, like, marketing is a channel that truth can express itself through, or that moment of invocation is a channel where that's an opportunity for that core inspiration to come through. And I love that in your story, basically, when you got clear on your core inspiration, which wasn't just purely awakened awareness, it was a particular expression or a particular facet or
a function is what I would call it.
Function of it, right.
A particular function.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is just who you are. Like, it's just who I am. That expression thing is part of my core inspiration. And so I feel like it's beautiful. Like, it's acknowledging also that we're naming something that's just natural, at least to us, and seemingly to other people that resonate with this, that there's that core, like when we get clear about that core, like then it's like, yes, you got it. All right, we're expressing now because we know what it is. Like life is like ready. And there's the readiness anyway. Some things just take time and we wait or whatever.
Yeah. And
so
their hand up, so I think I'll just say too that it is a great, I love that what's being pointed to is the invitation for everyone that might engage with this, with your invitation to get even more clear inside. Is it being moved from, what does it feel like, to be moved from doing and force and trying too hard, and what is it? It really invites you to get really subtle with that. There is a way that it's not a doing that this happens. And that includes if it's not time, then it's not time.
Yeah.
Part of it.
Beautiful.
So
So,
Anne,
who else do we have?
You have Anne.
Yeah. So Sarah, that was really helpful to me to hear about that way of framing it as a blueprint and getting that clear. And it's interesting because I think for me, I also feel like I have this very clear blueprint, and I know, and it's been sort of emerging and becoming more crystal clear over time. And I have a lot of a better sense of where I think it wants to go. But there are also these other layers of, wanting not to be coming from a doingness and a sort of mental goal. There are layers of fear. There are layers of just fuzziness, of how does consciousness want to move that is free from layers of ego and drive and these other things. So to just sort of be able to get clear on what is really authentic within this and really honest and true, instead of just sort of the desire to move forward on it because now it's clear. And so I feel like there's a waiting and I was just wanting to be quiet with it it's not even, and maybe this is where the cycle, Maja, is helpful, because it's not like there are parts of it down on the bottom where it's more clear about what my message is and how I might craft that and how I might bring it forward, but some of the other parts are probably where there's more hesitation. And part of it is just a willingness to reveal that and be really willing to give it space and voice and not hide, and I think that's an obstacle that a lot of people work with too, is just really being willing to say, this is actually my truth. And it's not the truth that I see around me, but it's inevitable for me to have to live this. There's no way for me not to live it. So I think those are all pieces where when I look at this different parts of the circle, I see some of those where these fuzziness or fear or hesitation is much stronger, and other ones where it feels more transparent to move forward.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad that it gives a little bit of a sense of, being able to see what could I address or not. It just sort of narrows down this universe of vague, why are things not kind of flowing forward or whatever. Yeah, that's beautiful. So do you feel like you're clear about that core inspiration for yourself?
I do. Yeah,
You do.
I feel like that's gotten very clear.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I wanted to reflect on just that sense of the shift, I think, that we're in right now collectively, that those core inspirations that we're each sort of tapped into individually in our unique way is something that is new now. Like before, it was like, there was the Zen teacher on the top of the mountain, and there was some like enlightened holy guy in India, and there's these people within certain traditions, and few and far between, that were sort of in a position to express. And now we get all of those people on YouTube, plus all of these other things, and it's like we're not selling water, and the sort of metaphor that we're not selling water by the river anymore. Some people still sell water by the river, but other people sell what you can do with the water. Here, you can grow plants with the water, or you can, wash your face, or you can go for a swim, or, it's like it's not just the water. Yeah, we got the water. We get the water. And that's one of the things that I am inspired by with the Center for Nondual Awareness. It's like, yes, we all know about the water. We don't have to be told about the water. That's the starting point. We all have the water. We all have our own wellspring within us. Now what do? and we figure that out collectively, or we move through that. And part of the deep inspiration that I've felt is that also seeing, being close in Adya's circle, and from the early days, and knowing so many of the people that he invited to teach way back when, and other people that are equally sort of clear but aren't necessarily teaching, and seeing like some of these people struggling, to sort of make a living or whatever. They are doing their dharmic work. And it's like, oh, they could use my help. Mm-hmm. Like, especially, when I realized Adya didn't need my help anymore, it's like, there's 50 other people that could use my help, but they can't support my life either, because I have to pay my mortgage or whatever. And so this being with the Center for Nondual Awareness is the way, and doing this course is a way for me to like take whatever it is that I can offer and offer it to support people in a larger context, and not just one or two people, right? Mm-hmm. And so, as is obvious, like I don't have all the answers, but I have experience and I have passion. And I know that when you say your core inspiration, and when you say, yes, I have a wellspring within me, I believe you, and I know that it will be so beautiful. And if the center can, as a collective, like I can't do it myself, but I feel like there's something that happens. Like another metaphor is like this forest, right? There's all these, like a tree growing here and a tree growing over there. And it's kind of hard to be a lone ranger tree. You can do it. Some trees are made to kind of grow by themselves, but some trees really are made to be in a forest. But when we get that shared root system that helps all the trees grow, it's not just that each tree grows. It's that the birds start to live there. It's that the mushrooms start to grow. It's that the forest gets so big it changes the oxygen on the planet. It's like there's so much that can happen when we're not all separated. And
go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, it's just really funny that you use that particular metaphor, because my work is around using principles of ecology and how nature has supported life for so many years, but from a spiritual perspective, and sort of merging those two. So I love that you brought that metaphor forward. That's great.
I love that it came forward with you.
You got it.
We're all connected, see?
Exactly. But I love the idea of having a community too, because it's different than, as you say, going to a business coach or something, because it's coming from a different place. And so it's important to have the whole process really be integrated and consistent. So I think it's exciting to see. There was something else I wanted to share with you, but I forgot what it is. So I'll come back to it if it comes back to me. But thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's fun. And so I want to know if what is your next thing? Like for most people, or a lot of people that I've been meeting recently, realize, I'm not clear about my core inspiration. And so I know, well, that's the first thing that I would suggest that you get clear on. But since you're already clear on that, what do you feel like is your next growing edge with this?
Okay, so first, I remembered what I was going to say real quickly, which is that when you're talking about selling water by the river, I think part of what's important about this too is that not everybody lives by the river, and everybody's heard of the river. But as you start to get, they're the sort of core people who are the first ones saying, hey, here's some water. Have you seen this before? Here's this river. But then you start to move it out, and they're the people who are off living far away, but it gets translated and retranslated in new ways, in different ways that reaches new people. And I think that's part of what's important too, is that everybody's not the Zen guy on the mountaintop, but there are lots of other people. And in our modern world, it's just a different set of messengers. And I'm not trying to equate myself with people like that, but I'm just saying it moves through in different people in different ways, which allows different people to hear it. We've all had different teachers that say the same thing, but the one guy says it in that certain way and it really gets you, you know. So I think that's part of what this process is too, is just spreading it out into different translations, the cultural translations. So yeah, so I think the next thing, I've been doing a lot of writing, and I have one piece that's helped me really clarify what I'm trying to do. And so my next step is really putting together, I think, the sort of inquiry part of it. That's probably where I'm most comfortable, and getting that really clear, because it seems like for me, the rest of it comes from that sort of a translation of the core intention into reality, and then the rest of it needs to flow from that. So that's sort of the next
beautiful.
pace. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes sense that to be clear about what process are you taking people through, or whatever it is that you're asking yourself. And then that can be, that's part of the invitation. The invitation also needs to know that already. So it doesn't always go in that exact cycle, but yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great. Well, I know we have, how many hands do we have up, Sarah?
We have Bobby. That's what we got right now, Bobby.
Okay, so we'll take, let's hear from Bobby, and then we'll talk about some other things.
Thank you, Maja.
Bobby.
Hi.
Hi, good to see you again.
Really good to see you. Yeah, I'm just a lot of thoughts coming up. It's I think one of the things that inspired me to come to the first a conference last year of the Non-Dual Center was something you'd written about it being this sparkling gem, this tiny gem, something like that. But it just made it so approachable and so beautiful and so inviting that I'm like, I'm going, you know. And so I'm really interested in also the power of the written word. Been coming through, you know, for some years I worked as a writer and editor. Then I pretty much raised my girls and I volunteer for newsletters. But it's sort of like I got to a stage in my life where I thought, oh, I can do some big thing now. And little things kept kind of smacking me in the face, like, you know, and I go, no, I'm going to go do some big thing in the world. And finally I realized that I was being called to you know, just like today, just going to the dentist's office and just being with people and just like letting go into a space a little bit more, like feeling that vitality, feeling more aliveness, feeling less holding in myself, seeing less holding in them. I mean, just that kind of excitement, and then bringing that into relationships, and also, you know, working with writing. So more of like the invitation part of it interests me. And there's a whole set of challenges there, like, you know, I've got to get this thing done, and yet I kind of want to just let it flow. It's not quite flowing right now. There's a deadline coming. Those kinds of questions, you know, kind of, it's different than back when I was working for Hospitals Magazine. You know, it's a different kind of feeling, and it doesn't really want to be pushed or rushed as much. So just different things I'm playing with, and also just really interested in small spaces. Like for me, maybe it's being an introvert, but I know that you know, organizations tend to get bigger, and because there's a lot of power in wanting to reach out to as many people as possible, and life does not want to limit that. And at the same time, it feels like there are people who thrive in smaller, more contained, more quiet spaces. Like I never walked up to the microphone, and I just, but I love him and I'm drawn to it. You know, I've listened to countless YouTube things, you know, and been so fed and nurtured by that and love that. And there's part of me when I sit, I like to have a little bit smaller space. I like to get to know the people better, you know, and there's one group I've been sitting with. We've known each other for years and years, and it's just like we're good friends, and it's so nurturing, you know. So it's that kind of space that I feel like I'm kind of interested in supporting, and I have some questions too around technology. Like I see technology being this really valuable thing for so many people, and yet at the same time, there's an incredible value in just being in person with people, sitting and meeting, and so that's another question that's been up for me. So I'm feeling all these things start flowing as you're speaking. So I really appreciate your opening up this space, and yeah.
Yeah, and I love your bringing in that so vital importance of those small spaces. And what's occurring to me, I just feel like saying, I don't know if you're a member of the center yet, but oh, great. Yeah. So one of the things that I've been sort of stirring is like, how do we support each other, right? Like how does the membership create value for the membership? And just putting it out there, I think it'd be lovely to have, like, maybe this is not aligned for you, but as you're talking, it's like, wouldn't it be great to have like a monthly article about how to have a small group, how to hold space, how to, invite people into that circle, like the small group circle monthly thing, like that would be lovely to have, once we get a blog going, if there's people that want to contribute, like I could see you contributing something like that. That would be super valuable.
Cool.
Yeah. So great. Okay. So time goes by when we're having wonderful people on the call. All right. So
someone else too wanted to raise their hand, but I know you wanted to get to a couple things. Just thought I'd tell you.
Okay. Who was that?
Adit. She's on the phone,
okay.
So she chatted in.
Great. Yeah. Let's try to be quick, but I'd love to hear from you.
The phone, but I'll try to put my face up if I can. Okay. Okay.
Hey,
hi.
There you are. Good to see you again.
So I am so glad you guys are talking about this because I identify with this so much. I'm just now I feel like I'm coming out of my shell after, and I can get totally emotional. I don't know why. After hiding for so long and so confused and so, just going through the whole integration, and I'm still integrating, obviously, but it feels like I'm coming out of my shell. So I'm so happy that you guys are talking about this because I'm ready. And so anyway, in terms of my background, I'm a professional photographer, I was a senior art director for advertising agencies for over 15 years. And I had my own design studio. I studied architecture, and I'm just a major visual person. And I'm ready to get out of my shell. So I just wanted to put that out.
Wow, that's beautiful. So I don't know are you a member of the center yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, I hope you join us. And if you do, there's another person that I would really love to join the center who I have not sort of invited yet, but he's an architect, and I would love you guys to meet. And that's one of the things that I feel like is a potential when we're all sort of in a, we commit with our membership dues for the year, like, hey, we're in this together. Mm-hmm. And so then there's this opportunity to make connections with people. So I just want to say, oh yeah, like I know a kindred spirit of yours up in Oakland. And so, so we'll see how that unfolds. But in my heart, it's like I'd love to create a context where those connections can more easily happen.
Okay, that sounds great.
Yes, I'm so glad that you raised your hand and that we got to hear from you. And thank you for being with us.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about like the center, and to really, I think that I've been talking about it here and there, and I think it's clear that we are in a sort of sprouting phase. We're in a regrowth phase, and what do I want to say about it? I guess I want to tell a little backstory about the center and how it came to be. And maybe, I don't know if John's still on the call, but it would be great to hear from Sarah and John if you guys have anything to add about, like, what is the center, or what do you feel like is an invitation you want to put out to people to be to join us. And also remembering that this will be recorded, and maybe there's other people listening besides who's on the call right now. But the little story I want to just say is that the center started, and actually Jan is one of the founding board members, as far as I know. It started with a group of people that went through I don't know if it's called a satsang teacher training, but basically satsang teacher training with Peter Fenner. And when I was reflecting on that maybe a week ago, I realized, wow, way to go, Peter. Because back in that time when he was starting to do those things, it was a little bit like out there to think, well, you can't just have anyone do satsang kind of thing. And then I realized, and I sort of had that, a little bit of that, like I was happy that he was doing it, but then there was something in my mind that was just like, really? But then realizing now it's the same thing that I was saying about, like, everyone has that capacity. It's, obviously grace that opens that up. But once that's opened, it's like there is just so much potential, and how do we create the spaces for ourselves? How do we learn how to do that? Anyway, I'm not an expert in what Peter does, so I won't even pretend to even know exactly what he does in his program, but just to say that realizing, oh, what he was doing is so aligned with the Center for Nondual Awareness. And it's like for people that are called to express timeless wisdom and unconditional love. So anyway, one of the groups that went through his training, including Adam Chaxfield, and it must have been Jan in that group, and a number of other people that that went through that training and said, hey, let's stay in touch. Let's support each other to go the next step with this. And they created the Center for Nondual Awareness, a nonprofit organization, and they invited people like Adyashanti and Rupert Spira to sort of under the hood sort of meetings, and they had smaller group meetings to support each other. And I just want to acknowledge, like, that's where it started. And then at a certain point, I'm not sure what shifted and where, but it seemed like it was just time for a new growth. And so it kind of like waned a little bit, and that's when Sarah and John and I stepped up as a new board, and so we're in a new phase of growth that we're trying something new here in a way, but it's rooted in that first phase of growth. So I didn't tell that story very well, I'll acknowledge that, but there is the beautiful story of how that started and then where we're at now. And I'm wondering if Sarah or John might want to say a little bit about the center in any way.
I'd love to hear from John if you have anything. I'll unmute you.
Okay, am I unmuted now? Yeah, okay, great. I think it's such a fabulous case study or case in point or expression of what vision we have discussed, that the flowering of this meeting tonight, and as the first of the series of 9, should have the opening and the level of dialogue and interaction that really has allowed some kind of opening and collective feeling of understanding, inspiration, collaboration, mutual support. And we have constantly been talking about a place for that forest to occur, and a place for the sprouting to occur, and a shift away from all of us being a bit isolated, or, as she just said, coming out of a shell, or coming out of a place where there hasn't been that richness of connection. And as I watch this conversation unfold tonight, or one at a time, people beginning to ask, significant questions, or giving a testimonial for what, like Sarah, what your process has been. And then the dovetailing and the spiraling of the level of awareness and inspiration that we could, and curiosity that we could hold together. That this is a really encouraging expression of what we're envisioning for it to continue to grow and to blossom. So, that's a real taste of what we've been discussing, and it's really exciting to see it happening tonight.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Yeah.
It brings back that sense of, while there may be some real value in sort of this model that I'm presenting, or talking about those kinds of questions, the ultra awesome value in my mind is it's an excuse for us to be in a collective together, and to see what comes out of that, are connecting with each other, that supports each other in whatever way that wants to unfold. So anyway, John, you always have such an articulate way of saying things, so thank you for speaking up.
Yeah.
Sarah, how about you? Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would say that, this conversation is really, I love that this is the only place that I ever found that honors the tenderness of the beginning stages, and that how it feels to try to push through the earth, and it's not a doing, we can't help it, it's just happening, and yet it's tender, and there's so many places of our own. It's almost like it's still a part of our awakening to go through this first phase, and there's still so much meeting these places of fear and doubt, and these things that still need to get touched by love as we're still in these beginning phases. And I'm reminded of that, and I'm very grateful that I can be part of a container that would hold people there, and also help the flowering happen with this kind of extra transmission that we've all been talking about. Of it's not just you, it's unflowering, it's unfolding. And it's like this awareness of the forest itself, not just this flower, but like the whole forest is unfolding as much as this individual flower is forming. It's inseparable. So, yeah, there's probably a lot more things I could say, but that's what I got right now.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, and so part of our process in our little sprouting phase is that we're doing our best to sort of keep things moving along and keep things alive. And so in terms of what, like just a practical level of what does a membership include, my feeling is, again, like I said, how can the membership serve the membership is a question in my mind, because there is so much goodwill and it's just a matter of how do we channel ourselves in a way that nourishes us as we nourish each other. And so the reason I'm saying that is because that's not something that we can have like a plan for exactly. You know, there's ideas about what's possible, but until we grow a little more, we'll see, you know, what becomes possible and what's the organic growth of this organization. So I'm just saying that to preface that, you know, the hope is that whatever it is that we're offering now, that there will be a deepening or, you know, enriching of what we offer as a center. And even for now, you know, I feel like the potential of this 9-part series that we're doing, you know, if this was like a business training, it would be a lot of money in terms of like supporting your business to grow, you know, those kinds of things. I'm sure a lot of us have seen those online, that kind of thing. So in my mind, you know, the fact that we can create this space together is, you know, it's worth much more than the price of membership for the people that feel supported by this context of this 9-part series. Some other things that we're offering, we have the retreat that's coming up in May. Hopefully we'll get that moving along. And so for that event, members get a discount for that. We also do what we can with other organizations to get discounts for our membership, like the Science and Non-Duality Conference and the upcoming Non-Dual Wisdom and Psychotherapy Conference. Both of those organizations we've partnered with to offer a 10% discount for our members. So that's one thing. And we have a calendar where we list members' events. And the way that we're setting it up, I believe at this point, will be that each member can post 2 events per month. And we're going to be setting up an email system so that you get reminded, okay, what are your 2 events that you want to post? And then we'll post those. So there's like a collective, not only will that be like, oh, I get some more sort of advertising for my events, but it's like there is a collective place where we can start to read what's going on in the community and who's offering what, and just even have that goodwill towards other people that are sprouting in their expression or flowering in whatever way they're flowering. We also have a page with all the past recordings, so including, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, it's really all the archived things that were for members only, like the Under the Hood meetings with Rupert Spira, or am I?
I'm not sure they're all on there. I do believe there are a few.
But there's like, is there like 50 recordings on there?
All together, audio, recording. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a whole slew of that, and that's one of the to-do list items, is to say what those actually are. So when people before they decide, they know that, you know, what they're getting. But all those recordings are there, plus all the recordings from this series will be there for the membership. So if someone joins in 3 months, they'll have this recording and the next 2, so they can sort of get with the sort of background of what we've been doing. And yeah, is there anything else that I'm missing right now?
I mean, we do our hosted evenings once a month, but those are for the public.
Yeah, so the hosted evenings are for some of our members that we invite to offer a partnership in terms of hosting their satsang, and they get exposure to our community. And that's really one of the ultimate things that I feel like is possible with our coming together is that each of us sort of brings in our own communities, and thus we enrich, then more people can kind of learn about all the different possibilities in a context that's really held with integrity and depth. And so I feel like there's so much that I cannot articulate about what's possible, but coming together in that possibility, I feel like it's really an experiment that we're doing together. And I welcome you if you feel called to participate in the experiment with us. If you feel like you're in that place of choiceless service to the whole, and have a commitment to integrity and love, I feel so good about you joining our circle here. So that's just an invitation to join us at the Center for Nondual Awareness. And we have a Join Us page if you go to nondualcenter.org. And then there's a Join Us tab along the top, and you can click there to see the details of membership and how to register. So is there anything else we want to say before we stop the recording, Sarah? Okay, you're on mute. Do you want to repeat that?
I said that was perfect and beautiful, and thank you so much.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. And since we're at 8, unfortunately, it sounds like we don't have time to take questions, but great. So let's go ahead and stop the recording. And then I just want to say for the